Mr. Sandman, give me a dream. Show me something that I never seen. Mr. Sandman, talking about Attorney Tom in this video. That's all I got. Alright, here's a video from... Here is a video... Easy for you to say. Here's a video from Attorney Tom. I like and dislike this guy. This video made me really not like him very much because he's just towing the status line, okay? He's covering the Frank Sloup video that Lackluster covered, okay? And he's going to be on one side of the screen. I'm going to be on the other. And I'm going to pause because there's no way this guy would ever debate me, I don't believe. So this is the only course I can really take to get my point across about this stuff. So here we go.
What's going on, y'all? Attorney Tom here. In today's video, I'm going to be reacting to Lackluster's video titled Caught Deleting Evidence Before Trial. Make sure you go check out the original video, linked in the description.
After a few minutes, he catches a local resident, Nate, allegedly speeding.
71, my lane. Passing all these cars. Let's get a good look. Chrysler, that guy right there.
Remember,
Okay, it's not a Chrysler, so let's start there. So he misidentified the vehicle, and now let's hear what Tom has to say.
if y'all have watched this channel before, you know that the police officers can pull you over so long as they have at least reasonable suspicion. What is reasonable suspicion? Reasonable suspicion is something more than a hunch. Here, they have a laser. They have a speed radar that says he was traveling 71 miles per hour. Now, I'm presuming, based on the officer's action, that 71 miles per hour is over the speed limit. So right away, based on that information, unless told otherwise, I think there is reasonable suspicion and they are clear to pull the driver over at this moment.
As they pull Nate.
Okay, you don't know what he was pointing the gun at. Radar does have a failure rate, and especially not the laser, but the other one, which should be reasonable doubt. Second of all, you don't know which car he was pointing it at. He said Chrysler. It's not a Chrysler. And just because a cop's pulling you over doesn't mean and should not assume he has reasonable suspicion of a crime, because first of all, traffic infractions aren't crimes. There's no victim. It's just revenue generation and extortion through the barrel of a gun on the roadside. So you don't know what he's pointing at. He misidentified the car, and now he's going to violate traffic law himself, the traffic enforcement officer, and he's going to tell his passenger to violate traffic law also.
Nate over. Deputy Sloup tells his passenger that he doesn't need to fasten his seatbelt, and it appears that Deputy
Tom thinks that's funny for some reason.
Sloup doesn't have his fastened either, confirmed by the audible chime in the dashcam video.
I don't know why you put your seatbelt on. We're not going anywhere. That's true. Unless it turns into a pursuit, then we are.
Eventually,
So you don't have to follow traffic law unless it turns into a pursuit. That's the law that Frank Sloup made up on the spot. Traffic enforcement officer Frank Sloup doesn't follow traffic laws.
I love these channels. I love these channels. They always take the little jabs at the cop.
That's not a little jab. Again, how is that a little jab? A traffic enforcement officer doesn't follow traffic law. That shows his credibility of his job. It'd be like, I'm a fry cook, but I can't cook you anything fried. Or I don't cook fried foods. Or I'm going to saute your french fries instead of fry them. No.
Okay. And I get it. I get how it's infuriating because the police officers aren't following their own traffic codes, but unfortunately, while infuriating to the people watching, two wrongs don't make a right. The police officer's unwillingness to buckle their seatbelt while pulling over the guy has absolutely nothing to do with the relevance of the underlying action they committed of the guy who they're pulling over. But
I disagree there because it shows his character and his credibility. He's literally stopping someone under the threat of force for violating the same traffic laws he's supposed to be enforcing. I would move to strike the witness for lack of credibility. If he can't follow the laws, how's he going to enforce them on me? And this guy claims that it has nothing to do. You know, him telling his passenger to violate traffic law while he violates traffic law himself has nothing to do with him stopping the other guy for violating a traffic law. I don't see the sense there.
I respect the jab.
It's not a jab. It's just pointing out factual hypocrisies and the lies and corruption of police in general. They can make up anything to stop you.
Get it.
Nate,
You don't get it.
Sloup, and the cameraman are pulled off to the side of the road.
See your driver's license, please.
Yes, sir. Can I ask what you pull over for?
Absolutely. As soon as I see your driver's license, I will be very happy to tell you.
That's not how it works. Can you tell, first of all, what's your name and your badge number?
I'm sorry. I do this for a living.
They're supposed to identify, so him asking his name and his badge number is nothing wrong with that. Because as far as he knows, just because he's dressed up like a G.I. Joe here doesn't mean that he's an actual cop. That's why they have identification policies. So he's asking for his ID. He's a complete stranger with a costume on, with a gun, asking him to surrender his right to privacy under the Fourth Amendment. Doesn't introduce himself and doesn't even have the common courtesy to say, here's the reason I'm impeding your freedom.
You don't. I tell you how this works.
I tell you, see, Frank Sloup is the master, and the person in the car, in the Genesis, not a Chrysler, is the servant. So Frank's the master. I tell you how to do this, and the traveler is a servant somehow.
Let me see your driver's license, or I'm going to pull you out of your car and arrest you for failing to provide ID.
So I didn't introduce myself. I didn't tell you who I was. I didn't tell you why I'm impeding your freedom, and then immediately follows it up with a threat.
This is a legal request. I don't want to hear any other words
Legal request. It's a legal command or it's a request. Can't be both.
out of your mouth except here's my driver's license. Please.
Okay, so we're coming out the gate swinging. The police officer is correct here. So here's the thing that confuses a lot of people. I think I talked about this in one of the recent videos that I just did. If the police have reasonable suspicion, their request for identification is lawful. Now,
If they have reasonable articulable suspicion of a crime. This isn't even a crime.
they have no obligation to tell you the facts that govern the underlying reasonable suspicion. Now, this
So here's the problem. He's going to say, this is where people throw tomatoes at me. In most states, you don't have to ID yourself. Oh, don't worry. In most states, you don't have to ID yourself unless they have reasonable articulable suspicion that a crime is or about to be committed. And they can't just say, give me ID because I have it. They have to articulate something. I need you to surrender your Fourth Amendment right to privacy because X, Y, or Z. And he's going to say, of course, people are going to throw tomatoes at you because this is ridiculous.
At this point, the angry keyboard warriors are typing. Well, Tom,
I'm not typing.
if he doesn't tell you what the reasonable suspicion is, how the hell are we supposed to know?
Oh, that's a good question.
And the answer to that question is you're not going to know unless you go to court and fight this thing.
Oh, so we can have our freedom impeded, we have to surrender our privacy, and we don't have the right to know why unless we spend our time and money going into a corrupt court.
That's why you'll often hear me say that this is not the fight that you're going to win right here on the scene.
A lot of people have won the fight on the scene, and if a lot of people started doing this, traffic enforcement will go right out the door.
And you know what?
They can do it because we let them do it, period. If every stop led to a court case, every stop, it made it nearly the most aggravating thing in the world to do is stop somebody, they would stop doing it.
Being polite goes a whole long.
It's not, sorry, Attorney Tom, but it's not polite to be armed and impede somebody's freedom, threaten violence against them. That's not polite. Polite goes a long way, especially when you're supposed to be a professional and it's in your policy to be polite, regardless of what anybody says to you. Frank Sloup got caught up in his feelings here. Nothing more, nothing less.
Way. So applied to this analysis here, this police officer definitely has reasonable suspicion.
Whoa! How does he definitely have reasonable suspicion? Again, you don't know where he pointed that gun at, what he was pointing at. They have a failure rate, and he misidentified the car as a Chrysler when it's a Genesis.
So even if they're
So I disagree already.
in a state that doesn't have an ID law for the sake of IDing, there is reasonable suspicion. So that law is not really applicable.
Reasonable suspicion of a crime. Where's the victim? Who's the plaintiff?
because there's reasonable suspicion, he can lawfully request an identification. He does not need to say what the reasonable suspicion is. That might sound unfair. As my criminal law professor used to say, it tain't fair.
Oh, so from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, government's sole job is to keep us and our rights intact and to do everything possible to keep our rights intact. And if there's ever a question, they're supposed to favor towards the citizen versus the government. That's government's mission, right? So if it tain't fair, Tom, that means it's corrupt. And you're going along with the corruption. That's all you're telling us right there.
And I know that's going to upset a lot of people, but that is the reality.
Yeah. So, thanks, Tom. The reality is that the justice system is unfair, cops are unfair, they have an unfair advantage, and everything is corrupt. And you go right along with it, because that's just reality. Don't try to, you don't want to speak against it. You're part of the system.
Let's keep going.
Any other words out of your mouth except here's my driver's license?
Again, any other words out of your mouth except here's my... So now he's trying to control his speech. That's not a First Amendment right violation? Any other words except here's my license. So if he says a question or says anything else, Sloup and this attorney here believe they have the right to use force against him.
Please.
Deputy Sloup is technically correct. There are no laws in Arizona that force a law enforcement officer to tell you the reason that they pulled you over. Some agencies across the United States have policies that demand an officer explain the reason for the stop, but when I asked...
How about common sense? You must not think it's a big deal to impede somebody's freedom. Common sense would dictate, hey, I'm stopping somebody with a gun on my hip under the threat of violence if they don't comply, and you don't even believe they have the right to know why you're impeding their freedom? Again, who's the servant and who's the master in this situation? This guy's like the audit here.
Pinal County Sheriff's Office for documentation that covers the policies and procedures governing a deputy's behavior during a traffic stop. They claimed that there are no policies on how a deputy should conduct himself on a traffic stop.
Why would there not be a policy of how an officer would conduct himself during a traffic stop when you guys constantly claim that's one of the most dangerous things to do as a cop, yet you do it at the tune of $7 billion a year just in speeding tickets, and I think about $20 billion a year get extorted from the citizens in total traffic infractions. It's disgusting. Honestly.
There is, however, both the United States Constitution and case law that are relevant. When you are pulled over, the officer usually has probable cause to believe that you have already committed a crime or infraction, and during a lawful traffic stop, you are required to provide the officer with your license, registration, and insurance documents. That being said, under the Fourth Amendment, we the people are supposed to be secure in our persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search.
So this analysis is under-inclusive. It's not probable cause. It's reasonable suspicion to pull you over. Probable cause has to do with arresting somebody and searching and seizing somebody. When you have reasonable suspicion, you can simply pull them over and temporarily detain them.
That's an arrest. Detainment's an arrest. If they stop your freedom, they impede your freedom, they are seizing you. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. That means you don't impede on me, period. Shall not be violated, but upon probable cause. So, he has reasonable suspicion that a crime is afoot, the act of going faster than they want you to go, even though no victim. And if he was endangering somebody, I understand. And I cover that in my part 2 of this series. Where was I? So the Fourth Amendment asks, should absolutely, you're in your houses, persons, papers, or effects. You're in your own private property, supposedly your vehicle, traveling down the roads you pay for, and somehow the Fourth Amendment doesn't come into play. Your right to privacy, your right to seizure and search. They're searching your documents. He's asking you to search your documents, your information. Your information is your right to privacy. I disagree here.
This is still a seizure, but it's different than probable cause. So obviously...
So he's doing this like there's a gray area thing. There wouldn't be a gray area if we just follow the Fourth Amendment.
We kind of follow the logic of where Lackluster is trying to go, but I would just critique it and say it's certainly under inclusive, and you can ask for ID so long as there's reasonable suspicion.
It's reasonable suspicion of a crime. Where's the crime? Who's the victim? Where's the plaintiff?
Seizures. The term probable cause is derived from that Fourth Amendment where it states, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation.
Additionally, Lackluster, you're inquiring about warrants. There is something called the automobile exception.
Oh, there it is. Attorney Tom says there's an automobile exception. There's an automobile exception to the Fourth Amendment? So you've amended the Fourth Amendment without 2/3 or 3/4 of the states agreeing to it. Based on what? You don't get to change the Fourth Amendment. It's literally de facto. It's widely accepted yet illegitimate. It's a de facto traffic code garbage.
Which means that they might be able to search a car without necessarily acquiring a warrant. I don't know if that's relevant to this video right now, but just something to keep in mind if this thing goes into a full-on search.
And considering all of the above, it seems more than reasonable that an officer should have to articulate their reasonable suspicion or probable cause to a driver prior to demanding he surrenders his right to privacy from invasion by state agents. But
now, why are you wincing there, Tom? It's not reasonable to tell somebody why they're impeding their freedom as a free American? Let me go back just a little. Watch him squint when Lackluster says that.
Reasonable that an officer should have to articulate their reasonable suspicion or probable cause to a driver prior to demanding he surrenders his right to privacy from invasion by
What is not reasonable about that statement?
State agents. But, as you'll see, Deputy Sloup feels that you should have to surrender your papers any time an officer pulls you over, surrendering your Fourth Amendment rights first.
Hey everyone, Attorney Tom from the future here. I was just watching the video and I thought I would add some additional context because I do think the gentleman in the video was confused about the stop and identification law. It's important to remember that this guy's in a vehicle, and when you're in a vehicle, there are often additional laws or heightened requirements.
So when you're in a vehicle, he's saying the Fourth Amendment is now a hybrid thing. So when you're on foot, Fourth Amendment, good. When you get in your private property vehicle, Fourth Amendment heightened and changed. This is John from the present.
That you may have to comply with. So in front of me, I have Arizona Statute 28-1595, failure to stop or provide a driver's license or evidence of identity. Section A, the operator of a motor vehicle who knowingly fails or refuses to bring the operator's motor vehicle to a stop after being given a visual or audible signal or instruction by a peace officer or duly authorized agent of a traffic enforcement agency is guilty of a Class 2 misdemeanor. Here, that obviously didn't happen. He complied with the statute. He pulled over. Now, Section B. After stopping as required by subsection A of this section, the operator of a motor vehicle who fails or refuses to exhibit the operator's driver's license as required by section 28-3169, or a driver who is not licensed and fails or refuses to provide evidence of the driver's identity on request is guilty of a Class 2 misdemeanor. So here, he was driving. He got pulled over. He got pulled over correctly because there was at the very least reasonable.
Again, you keep saying that as if it's fact. You don't know where the gun was pointed. There's failure rates. And he has no credibility. And he misidentified the car. And he's on the Brady list. Something else he doesn't bring up in this video.
Suspicion. He had to identify himself. This whole thing about him needing a reason or all of this kind of stuff is just wrong.
The Fourth Amendment is wrong. A cop telling you why he impeded your freedom is wrong. Again, he's an attorney. He has the license or he's part of the bar or whatever. But fundamentally, you're wrong, dude. The guy didn't create a victim. He didn't do nothing. You're basing everything on hearsay evidence from Frank Sloup. Again, with the facts, you don't know where he's pointing on and on and on.
So again, this all goes back to the fundamental issue that everybody online, the keyboard warriors, are going to say
is unfair.
The only way you are going to know whether there was valid, reasonable suspicion or probable cause is if you go and find out in court, because the officer has no obligation to tell you.
So they could stop you, ID you, do whatever they want, and you're not even allowed to know why. So they can make up any reason anytime they want, and that's okay, according to Tom, because in reality, the system's not fair. He's going to confirm again that the system's not fair, which means it's corrupt, which means he just goes along to get along.
That might sound unfair, and it gives the government an advantage. But guess what?
The exact opposite of their mission.
What? That's the reality of the situation. Here, the police officer pulled the guy over for going 71, even though he doesn't know that yet. The police officer, based on what we saw, has, at the very least, reasonable suspicion.
Just because it was on camera. Any other cop could just make anything. That's ridiculous.
I'm going to...
Unfair means corrupt, because the system's supposed to be fair, and it's supposed to favor us, not the government. So unfair equals unlawful.
Say this again for the people in the back.
It ain't fair.
I'm making my criminal procedure professor proud.
Knowing why or if the officer is operating within the constitutional limitations to his authority. Nate.
So you mentioned the word constitution to cops and lawyers. They throw their hands up like it's like it's foreign to them.
Now begins to record on his cell phone.
Can you say it again?
Absolutely. I need your driver's license so I know who you are. I am not asking you. I am telling you. Give me your driver's license.
My name is Nathan.
I don't want your name. I want a physical ID as required by Arizona law.
I am asking you when I'm getting pulled over.
I will tell you as soon as I see your driver's license.
Okay. I will gladly give you my license, officer. Usually, I get some identification of the reason why I'm getting pulled over. That's usually how it works.
All right. Well, I'm Deputy Sloup. I work for the...
And that is usually how it works. Most cops that aren't scumbags will come up and say, "Hi, I'm Officer So-and-so. The reason I'm stopping you is blah, blah, blah. May I see license, insurance, and registration?"
County Sheriff's Office traffic unit. And the reason I stopped
Traffic unit that violates traffic law.
you is you're traveling 71 miles an hour in a posted 45-mile-per-hour zone. We also see registration, current proof insurance.
Yes, sir. Can I reach in my glove box?
Unless it's going to magically appear in your hands, you would
Tom thinks that's funny, him being unprofessional and smartass.
have to, right?
Yeah, look at that face of disgust. How dare this sheep challenge me? I'm Frank Sloup. Watch his disgusting face right here.
You also see registration, current proof insurance.
Yes, sir. Can I reach in my glove box?
Unless it's going to magically appear in your hands, you would have to, right?
Look at his face. And y'all, there's just no winning. Every time I make a video where I say the police are right, I get roasted. Every time I make a video that says the citizens are right, I get roasted. What I will say is, look, practically, because this guy is being very difficult,
He's being very difficult by wanting to know why he's being stopped and having a little bit of dialogue with the gunman that's impeded his freedom. Very difficult.
officer is going to be sure to write him a ticket and going to be sure to show up to the court date. Being polite actually does go a long way.
Yeah, tell Frank.
All of your information still current, still living in Mesa?
I don't answer any questions.
Boom! I don't answer any questions. I am the one who made that famous and viral across the internet. When you hear someone say I don't answer questions, first it started with Luck Foyers, Vincent. Then I took it and coined it, and now every time you hear it, it's probably because they watched my video with 19 million views. And no, I don't answer questions is the right way to go about it.
Okay.
And I had to get on my phone.
You're the one who decided to need to be recording, so
You're the one who decided. It's called an objective record, Frank.
you could also use it to
Something you decided, your cameraman decided to delete and lie about.
provide current proof insurance.
He wants me to update.
Well, you're required to provide it in a amount of time that would be
Right, it's coming up right now.
okay.
What went by? 20 seconds there?
It's giving me 15 seconds.
If you make an officer mad, they're gonna bust your balls.
Why? Why can't they be professional? Tom, it's like, that's just reality. Everything's unfair. The courts are corrupt. Cops have an advantage. Everything's against you, but hey, I make money this way.
So while I'm sitting here and I am a public servant, is there any other questions I can answer for you? Reference our contact.
Yeah, are you on the Brady list for lying and fixing paperwork? I wish you would have busted that out right there.
Okay, just want to make sure.
I thought this video was supposed to be about deleting evidence. I guess we'll just see if that happens later.
All right, well, you keep working on that.
Deputy Sloup now returns to his cruiser to share his thoughts with his cameraman and to write Nate a citation.
I have such a disdain for people like him.
He has a disdain for people who don't want to be bothered by government gunmen. Sorry, dude, that's the majority of the country. And they're waking up to your crap. And again, you're supposed to be an objective professional, yet here you are immediately, I hate these people, I have such a disdain, and you don't understand the sequence of events that need to go down so that my ego can handle this.
Just that condescending.
No one's more condescending than you, and in part 17, when I finally get there to his podcast.
Arrogant tone.
No one's more arrogant than you, Slippery Slope. Plus, you have no credibility. You're on the Brady list, which is something this lawyer doesn't bring up. And he says, I'm sure this cop's going to come to court. He doesn't show up to court. Spoiler alert, because he has no credibility.
There's no reason to be confrontational like that.
There's no reason to be confrontational about having your freedom impeded as an American by a gunman. Perfectly normal. Nothing wrong with cops just stealing $7 billion a year from you on the side of the road for speeding. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not even about the money. It's about safety.
No part of my contact with him was confrontational. Super simple and cordial.
Except when you threatened him.
And he just, for some reason, just can't seem to understand that there's a sequence of events that transpires here in Pinal County. And if he doesn't like that, maybe he needs to move back to Mesa.
Okay. If he doesn't like being impeded by cops for unconstitutional traffic code, he should move back to Mesa where they do the same thing.
This is why I urge you to always record your interactions with law enforcement. Deputy Sloup somehow feels that it was Nate that initiated the aggressive attitude.
See your driver's license, please.
Yes, sir. Can I ask what you pull over for?
Absolutely. As soon as I see your driver's license, I will be very happy to tell you.
That's not how it works. Can you tell, first of all, what's your name and your badge number?
I'm sorry. I do this for a living. You don't.
How do you know what he does for a living, liar?
I tell you how this works. Let me see your driver's license or I'm going to pull you out of your...
Okay, that I don't think is the gotcha moment that they thought it was. Even though, look, tempers flare, I get it. The police officer's in the right here because he had valid underlying reasonable suspicion at the very least.
According to you, he had valid underlying reasonable suspicion. Based on what? Because you saw him point a gun in a general direction of 100 cars coming his direction? And mislabeling the car again.
To pull this guy over. I'm going to say it again because I know that people are going to say this.
It ain't fair.
We get it. The system's not fair. It's corrupt, and it's far more advantageous towards the government being tyrannical towards the citizen instead of the actual purpose of government to protect our rights and rule in our favor when there's a problem. Gotcha, Tom. You're going along to get along. We got it. It's a shame because he did such a good job on Solo Yakker's video.
The police don't have to articulate what the reasonable suspicion is. If they are wrong, and then you can prove it in court, well, then you can prevail. But you can see how that's a gamble because you have to go all the way through the system. Is it difficult? And is that stacked against you? Absolutely.
So it's unfair, it's stacked against you, and it's corrupt. Thank you. You're proving our point for us.
But that's what it is.
It's just that reality is government doesn't follow their own laws, doesn't do what they're supposed to do, doesn't protect the citizens' rights like they claim to do, and always favor in their own direction versus what they're supposed to do is favor in our direction. That's just what it is. It's what it is.
Ain't fair. And guess what? If you're going to stick up for yourself like that, make sure you're legally in the right. And I do not think this driver is legally in the right.
Car and arrest you for failing to provide ID.
The cameraman now questions Sloup about the stop.
He started his phone recording so he could record me. I don't think he knows that he's being recorded. Like there's going to be something that I'm going to do that's improper in any way. But he felt the need to record me. And as soon as he recorded me, and I asked him, hey, I need your driver's license. He's like, I'd be happy to give it to you.
Lie.
But before that, when he wasn't recording me, he absolutely wouldn't. So it's that's why you can't believe everything that you see online, is because.
Meanwhile, this video came from his online show called Fridays with Frank.
There was that.
You can't believe someone in uniform, period. They're trained to lie. The Supreme Court said they can lie, and they're liars. Everything's unfair. It ain't fair, Tom. It is corrupt, and you're proving our point, and so is Frank here.
Whole entire contact that happened, and he starts to record, and all of a sudden he's just the nicest guy, and I'm this big mean guy that's just demanding stuff.
What are we going to do to him?
So, well, no matter what, I mean, he was going to get a citation before I stopped him, just
Yeah, I mean, you're so credible, Frank. We totally believe that.
based on how fast he is above the speed limit. So, and that hasn't changed. He's still going to get a citation for his speed. Just, I would imagine he will interpret the fact that he's getting a ticket as a result of his terrible attitude, when really it's just the fact that he is just violating our
He's the one with the attitude, not you.
on motor vehicle law.
The next section of video cuts off mid-sentence. When I received it, I wrote to the records division to inform them that they had provided an incomplete record. Their response was that the record no longer exists. With the GoPro, he lifts what they need and deletes the rest to save storage, which means they deleted evidence prior to the court date for the citation. And out of nearly 25 minutes of footage, this was the only part they removed. Not to mention, they didn't use a GoPro.
So, boom. He's not using a GoPro. The footage probably did exist. They might have deleted it, but then they're tampering with evidence. And he's not using a GoPro. So he's caught him lying here.
The video cuts and picks back up as the deputy returns to Nate's vehicle.
Interesting. So that's where their thesis is. So this is actually a very interesting legal question, because as somebody who's a content creator myself, tons of footage always gets deleted. We film for an hour and only 15 minutes worth of clips get shown up. They are trying to provide videos for the public. They're posting them on YouTube, but because they're a law enforcement agency, do they have some sort of additional obligation to preserve everything in the event of like a FOIA request or something of that nature? And I would argue, absolutely, yes, they should. And even though that creates some sort of additional liability and additional hoops that a police department videographer might have to jump through, such as storing all of this footage, that's just kind
All this footage was created with taxpayer money. Don't forget that part.
of the nature of the beast. But now we have to pivot that analysis to the underlying issue. Does deleting the footage in this particular case somehow exonerate the gentleman who got pulled over? And that,
If it did exonerate him, how would we know? And he's on the Brady list already, so it's not beyond the scope that he would do something corrupt and unlawful. And they're caught lying about the GoPro.
that answer is almost certainly not.
How do you know that? Almost certainly. I'm going to say almost certainly so, based on his track record.
That might be a tough pill to swallow for some people watching. But remember, the underlying incident is
The bottom line is they cut it out and there's no way to know. And saying he most certainly doesn't change the outcome. What if he said, I hate this effing cracker, racial slur, racial slur, racial slur? That would have nothing? What if he said, I actually shot another car with this laser, a Chrysler, like I said, but it's really a Genesis now, so I've gone too far now. You don't know what the hell he said, and to say he's almost certainly wouldn't help him is nonsense.
speeding ticket. The speeding ticket, there's going to be proof, which is this radar gun.
That's not proof. The only solid proof there is that the number 71 is on the gun. You have no clue who he was pointing that at. And no evidence to support it.
Reasonable suspicion was that he was speeding, as shown by the radar gun, to get pulled over. Again,
he's just accepting that he actually shot the right car with the radar. even though he misidentified it.
Actually probably have probable cause to write him the ticket because of the radar gun. But again, the minimum standard is reasonable suspicion. So if they had reasonable suspicion, they pulled him over. He absolutely had every right to request the identification. Having the gaps in the video.
Because of the automobile exception rule that changed the Fourth Amendment somehow. That's what he said earlier.
It doesn't change the underlying facts of why he is getting pulled over. Now, if the underlying facts were something that happened in the cutscene, like a fight that broke out or something and the footage was deleted, then maybe it might be relevant to the case. And the judge might be able to give some inference, like a spoliation inference, saying, hey, this evidence was destroyed, so you can infer that it goes against the party that destroyed the evidence. But here, that's... I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't think it's relevant. Is it messed up that they deleted footage? Yes. But is it something that is relevant to this case? Probably not.
After I locked.
Based on what? You haven't seen it. There's no way for you to know that, and you're strictly assuming and you're siding with the cop and the government again.
Him in on this. I watched him drive past me. Never lost sight of him. Pulled in right behind him. So I'm sure this is the type of guy that
everything you just said there was circumstantial.
Wants to find some sort of, I don't know, something to fight in this, and it just isn't there. It's not. This instrument is accurate.
Anyway, dude, I know this video is running long. I disagree with you, Tom. You made assertions that were facts, or you claimed stuff that wasn't provable. You don't know. Again, if I was a lawyer, what evidence do you have that you were pointing that laser at this car? And so on and so forth. Thanks for watching, everybody, especially if you're here this long. Check out my Etsy store. I got new rings, and I got some cool t-shirts now. One is 1776, and the other one is, what does it say? I already forgot. I'm sorry. Oh, it has my face. All right, everybody. Peace. Chicken grease. I'm going to be giving away a through-night flashlight soon. But you have to be a member, join the channel to win. It's only 99 cents to join the channel. And I give away flashlights, and I'm going to start doing other giveaways for members only. It's the best lottery going right now. All right. Peace, chicken grease. Love you. Bye.